Good evening, and welcome to Soluble, America's Political Central. Today is Friday, and today is also Issue Day. And the issue that we're going to be discussing on this evening is domestic terrorism. Now, we're going to take a deep dive here into this subject. And as I said, when we're dealing with Issue Day, we're always going to have to deal with harsh truths because our goal here is to try to solve whatever the problem, whatever the issue that we're discussing at that particular time. We're trying to offer our best opinion, the best facts that we can in order to always solve. That's our goal, is to always solve. Now, the Constitution has instructed us to protect the republic from all enemies, foreign and domestic. The Constitution has instructed citizens of America to protect the republic from all enemies, foreign and domestic. That's our responsibility towards the United States of America. Now, in the early 90s, late 90s, whatever, we had a few terrorist attacks from outside forces that consisted of individuals who were not citizens of America. They may have had a visa, a temporary visa. They may have came over on a student visa, et cetera, and they were able to commit terrorist attacks in New York City. They attempted to bring down the World Trade Center in the 90s unsuccessfully. And if I'm not mistaken, I think there was one other terrorist attack in the 90s in New York. But we really didn't take terrorism serious until September 11th, 2001, when the worst terrorist attack in American history was perpetrated on citizens in New York, at the Pentagon, and there was an attempt to crash another one, possibly into the White House, but there were some brave citizens on board who fought back to try to take control of the plane. But on September 11th, we had a new awakening, a new awareness of terrorists and terrorism as we had never known before up until that time. The president at the time, George W., swore and stated firmly that we would go after the terrorists no matter wherever they were, whenever we got a chance to. There was no place that they could hide from the American military might when it came to stoking terrorism, recruiting, teaching it, and or carrying it out. We went after terrorism in all shape, form, or fashion. We sent troops into battle. The CIA took notice. We just started the Department of Homeland Security. We got engaged in every shape, fashion, and form to stamp out terrorism. These were foreign enemies of America. Now, since that time, there has been a steady increase in domestic terrorism. Are we, as American citizens, are we going to attack the foreign terrorists, the domestic terrorists, as you were, the domestic terrorists, just as hard as if we would go after the foreign terrorists? Because it's here and it's alive and well. And if I'm not mistaken, there have been more acts of domestic terrorism since 9/11, since the war on Iraq, since we invaded Afghanistan and have since pulled out. But there's been more terrorist attacks that have been of a domestic nature than of a foreign nature. How does the American forces, the powers that be, whether it's the CIA, the military, the police, how do we all work together to go after domestic terrorists? Do we go after them with the same fervor, with the same energy, with the same willingness as we do the foreign terrorists? Because that's the root of the problem now. Terrorist organizations around the world, um, whether they be in any Asian country, Iran, Iraq, Yemen, wherever, Syria, we go after them. If they try to move around from country to country, we have our networks, we have our spy agencies, we have our people who are constantly monitoring chat rooms, et cetera, to locate the bad guys and eliminate the threat before it can reach American soil. And we have done a great job of it. There's been a great job of deterring future attacks on the American people. So now what we're really dealing with more readily, that really is still a constant threat that we haven't put at bay, is domestic terrorism in America. So as stated by the president who was in office when we had this major terrorist attack on September 11th, is it still the stated goal that we will go after the terrorists no matter where they are, no matter where they try to hide? Either you're with the terrorists or you're with us. How do we make that work? How do we make that statement work? If either you're with the terrorists or you're with us when it comes to domestic terrorists? Will we apply the same force, the same focus? Right now, it seems as if it's yet to be seen. If we have some web platform, some chat room where there are individuals from, just say, Saudi Arabia, for an example, and they're on this website or in this chat room saying we're going to kill infidels and we're going to kill all infidels every chance we get, whenever we see them, we monitor that. We're right on top of that. And as a matter of fact, we might send out spies. We might send out people posing a hitman, posing as a hitman, but he's really an FBI informant. He's really an undercover agent. And he's trying his best to see if this is just an idle threat or is this he or she serious about the message that they're putting out, that they're ready to try and kill infidels whenever, and wherever they find them. The domestic terrorist is just as dangerous, if not more so, than the foreign terrorist. There's nothing in the Constitution that makes an exception for Caucasian males who may falsely believe that they're being infringed upon, or that they're being replaced, or that people are taking over when it's not really so. There's no exception for that in the laws that govern this country. It simply states that we will defend the Republic from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Now, let's not let them thrive. Let's not let them thrive here in America, the domestic terrorists. We're looking to see, we're anxiously waiting to make sure that they're looked at, they're investigated, and if we find anything in any shape, fashion, or form where there's an active domestic terrorist, operating inside America, we go after them and we prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. Now, when I was growing up, I was always taught that as far as in America, we're against fascism. Fascism is something that all Americans stand up against. We fight hard against it in a free democracy. Fascism would never work here. Examples of fascists from the past that we've really went after or tried our best to eliminate: Mussolini, Hitler, Franco, just to name a few. Fascists that we went after in the past to put down in the world, to try to make the world a better place. Now you have Antifa, which by all accounts are, by all understandings that I have, is anti-fascist, which one would think, since in America we're against fascism, Antifa would be a good group. They would be the good guys because they are, in fact, as far as their name states, Antifa stands for anti-fascism. But here we've had a Republican president in the last 4 years that's raged on and on about Antifa. Antifa is the problem. Antifa is bad. And no one from the right side of the aisle stood up against this. As a matter of fact, to be fair, I don't think too many people from the left really clarified or tried to make it clear that the president was wrong on this, because anti-fascism is actually a good thing. And if there is a group that is anti-fascist in the form of Antifa, then that's actually a good thing. Because as I said, from my upbringing and my belief, as Americans, we've always stood against fascism. But here's 45 raging, ranting on and on and on about Antifa this, Antifa that. Antifa's the bad. Never once could he think of any other terrorist group in America or any other group, period, that may be practicing hate, preaching hate, attacking everything that America and American citizens stand for. You have the Proud Boys. You have the Oath Keepers. You have the 3%ers. You have the base. All of these, what is referred to in the media as alt-right or far-right militia groups that are filled with hate, that are seem ready and willing at the drop of a hat to commit an act of terrorism right here on American soil. The best the president could do during the debates was tell them to stand down and stand by. That was the best he could do to condemn them, to condemn a hate group in America. That was his version of condemnation for them. So as I said, let's take a long look at domestic terrorism, and do we go after it with the same energy as we would foreign terrorists? If these groups are on web platforms or in chat rooms saying they want to kill all niggers, all Jews, all Mexicans, who is monitoring this? And at what point do we go after them before they can commit an act of terror inside our borders? Are they being prosecuted? Are they being monitored? Are they being held to an account the same as we would foreign terrorists? It remains to be seen what the American law enforcement is going to do, what the American military will do to thwart these attempts, to stop these attacks inside our borders that are being committed against America's own citizens. We seem to have no problem going halfway around the world to combat it. What about when it's in our own backyard? It's going to be real hypocritical if we go halfway around the world to fight terrorism, wherever we find them, whenever we find them. SEAL Team 6 did a great job in eliminating the threat. What forces, what mechanisms do we have in place before these extremists can come out of the chat room and actually have a weapon and are ready to commit serious death and bloodshed? What do we have? What are the stopgap measures that we have in place for domestic terrorism in America? How have we went after them? Take a long look at it. Think about it. It doesn't seem as if there is enough of a deterrent to go, or enough determination to go after it on our own soil within our own borders as it is when it's halfway around the world in another country. When they're putting these messages out, when they're putting these threats out, they're here. They're alive and well. Now, as I've always said, when it comes to trying to solve, which is what Soluble is all about, we have to deal with harsh truths. We have to deal with harsh truths. And if the truth is going to be controversial, then controversy will be the order of today. It shouldn't be where the truth is controversial. But if it is, then that's what it is. It's the truth. We have school shootings. We have attacks on innocent people just going about their daily lives in the church, in the grocery store, just going about their everyday lives. And these domestic terrorists are alive and well. We can't seem to get a handle on it. We can't seem to get our arms around it. Where's the willingness? Where is the same zeal and the same zest to attack the domestic terrorists as we do the foreign terrorists? The world is watching, and we can't be hypocritical when it comes to this. We have to go after the domestic terrorists with the same energy and focus and determination as we went after the foreign terrorists. Because I said there's been an uptick in domestic terrorism that has risen above the foreign threat. The domestic threat is elevated. The foreign threat is somewhat neutral. It's somewhat stabilized. We have it well in check. Constantly monitoring. The CIA is on a mission, doing covert operations. We have our spy satellites. So with the foreign terrorists, we have them well in check. Well in check. So now, when it comes to domestic terrorism, let's see if we can get our arms around it and put a stop to it. One of the things that stuck out on one of the latest domestic terrorist attacks in America in Buffalo several weeks ago was the thought, the ideology of the Great Replacement. And these things are easily grasped upon. And they can really fuel hate when they're all falsehood, when they're all lies, when they're being made up by organizations such as QAnon or any right-wing extremist who just puts it out there, and it quickly gains traction, whether it's true or not. If there's a cabal or a pedophile ring at a pizza place in Washington, D.C., then we have law enforcement that will do the job to bring these people to bear, and they will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, as it always has been. Now, if it hasn't happened, you have to ask yourself, was this just a falsehood, an outright lie, something to stir up the masses and create a situation or a reason to kill innocents? It's happened before, way back, hundreds of years ago with our native brothers, where there'd be some cockamamie story cooked up. The Indians did this or the Indians started that when they hadn't done anything. But once you can get that rumor circulating, and once you can get that rumor to become a solid belief, then you can easily motivate people to grab up their guns and go out on a killing spree. The Great Replacement is fueling domestic terrorism in America. And we want to take a long look at what our law enforcement agencies are doing about it. It doesn't seem as if we're coming down as hard on domestic terrorists as we do the foreign terrorists. Just like we neutralized the foreign terrorists, we made them think twice, three times before committing any kind of terrorist act on American soil. We can do the same with domestic terrorists if we're serious about fighting terrorism, as I said, with the same energy as we do with foreign terrorists. Let's not be hypocritical on this. Let's not have the world to think that in America, even though we're sworn to defend the republic from all enemies, foreign and domestic, that the domestic enemies don't really matter. It's just the foreign enemies that we go after. This is not healthy for the republic. This is not healthy for a sound democracy. Thus, things have begun to crack, slowly start to crumble. And if we don't tighten up, then it's going to shatter. It's going to be broken beyond repair. Okay, first things first, into this deep dive. God has given all races of mankind instruction and order to go and be fruitful and multiply. That is the charge that he's given us all. And this is the thing that's pleasing in his sight. For us to go forward, be fruitful, and multiply. Now, with Caucasian males in America, who are some of the main instigators of domestic terrorism, you have that same charge. You have that same right. So you have to ask yourself, are you being replaced because you're doing this along with other races and you're still being replaced? Or could it be that, if anything, where the great replacement is taking place, it may be of your own actions? It may be of your own actions. Harsh truths. Caucasian males are suicidal. Caucasians in America, who are the main instigators of domestic terrorism, oftentimes they're killing their wives, they're killing their children. And I'm not saying that this doesn't happen with other races, but other races are not complaining or feeling threatened from being replaced. So you have a lot of work to do there because you take away from your own numbers when you do this. You have a charge, just like other races of man, to be fruitful and multiply. And these are the things that are taken away from your numbers, not that the Democratic Party is trying to replace you by bringing in people from Central America or from other foreign countries. This is a total falsehood. This is a total falsehood. But if you don't go with the charge that you have to keep, to do the things that's pleasing in God's eyes, as I said, is to be fruitful and multiply. You're not going to be able to multiply in the numbers that you should to reproduce when you're suicidal, you're gay. In a lot of cases, you're only having 2, no more than 3 children. As I said, you're murdering your spouse. Sometimes you're killing your spouse and children. See Chris Watts. See Scott Peterson. See Brian Laundrie. The Caucasian woman is there. She's beautiful. Are you leaving her hot and unbothered? Go in. As I said, you have a charge to keep, to be fruitful and multiply. Oftentimes, you're rejecting the woman, the female, who is of age to reproduce, and you're going after your own children. Perverted and immoral. Molesting children. This can have an effect on your numbers. This can have an effect on your ability to be fruitful and multiply. Because as I said, the woman is there. And she's ready. She's waiting. She's willing. So if you're being replaced, or if you feel as though you're being replaced, you need to check these boxes. Because you're hurting your own number through your actions. No other race is doing this to you. You're doing it to yourself. Again, no other race is doing this to Caucasians in America. You're doing it to yourself. You have the same charge to keep as other races of man. To be fruitful and multiply and go and replenish the earth with your kind. But here you are stuck. You're stuck right here, looking at other races and what they're doing and feeling as if the threat is coming from without. But the threat is right there within. It's cowardice. It's cowardice. That's what it is. These are acts of cowardice. This young man who went to the grocery store in Buffalo, based on what was written, based on the investigation that's been had, he wanted to find a large concentration of Negroes in America. He chose Buffalo. There's the Bronx. There's Brooklyn. There's Queens. There's Harlem. Negro males in these communities, in these boroughs, are running up the body count on a regular basis. Plus, as was stated by the killer, by the shooter, he's looking for a large concentration of African Americans. Why didn't he go there? Why didn't he go there? Instead, he commits a cowardly act to, as I said, go to a grocery store and target senior citizens, old women who are just going about their daily lives, trying to get food and get home to stock their shelves or whatever. And this is his target. This is what the domestic terrorist, I guess, calls striking a blow for the white race. And so, as I said, it's complete cowardice. It's complete cowardice. If you're looking to kill and kill in large numbers, as many Negroes as you can, there are places where they're concentrated at. Don't be afraid to go there, where the real men are. But yet you choose to go somewhere where you can be the shooter, and chances are no one is shooting back. And this is the home of the brave. I beg to differ. I beg to differ. Bravery would have been going into the five boroughs. One of them. One of the five. They welcome it. They welcome it. They would have been glad to accommodate you. Not saying that you wouldn't have got a few, but I doubt it would have been as many as this young shooter in Buffalo did get, because you know when he goes to one of those places and begins to shoot, you got a lot of shooters that are going to be shooting back, and so he's aware of this. And as I said, this is what makes this so cowardly, and this is what makes domestic terrorism such a grave threat to citizens right here in America. So we want to see if America could stamp it out at home just as quickly as they will go abroad and stamp it out. Domestic terrorism right here on American soil. Don't just monitor. Do some serious legwork. Do some serious groundwork, because we know that it's a serious matter. It's just as serious as the outside forces from Arabia or wherever. And now even more so. The threat, for one, the threat is false. The assumption that you're being replaced is false. And as I've stated, you're doing a lot of things to stop you from being fruitful and multiplying. But other races have a charge to keep as well. And we're going to do the best that we can to continue to do so, to be fruitful and multiply. Negroes in America who are gay, who are committing acts of child molestation, we want them to be dealt with. We want them to be found. We want them to be prosecuted to the serious extent of the law if they're doing this very immoral and perverted act of molesting children. But as I said, while this is happening amongst Negroes in America or any other race, these races are not complaining or falsely assuming that they're being replaced without really taking a long look in the mirror at themselves to see, okay, am I being replaced, or am I doing things to shrink my own numbers, to make my own numbers in America go down to the point where several years from now, I may begin to drift towards the minority. As I said, the Caucasian female is there. She's beautiful. She's ready. She's ready. Go in into her. Be fruitful and multiply. And if you can't do that, if you refuse to do that, if you don't do that, then it's no one's fault but your own. We have the great debate now. We're dealing with abortion in America. Another way to stop your numbers from growing. Another way to stop your numbers from growing. So there's a lot of things here. There's a lot of things that is going on amongst Caucasians who present the most clear and present danger when it comes to domestic terrorism. This is not a play on race. This is not playing the race card. This is actually calling it like we see it. Because no other race in America feels threatened, feels a threat to the point that they have to pick up a gun and go around shooting and killing innocent people of another race. So as I said, we went after the foreign terrorists. We went after the foreign terrorists. But there is a clear and present danger when it comes to domestic terrorism in America. And the question is, what is law enforcement going to do about it? The world is watching. The world is watching. And as I said, the Constitution makes no exception for Caucasians in America who may falsely feel as if they're being infringed upon to the point where they're being wiped out or to the point where they're being replaced. If America is the trellis, then Negroes in America are the ivy that's intertwined and interwoven into it. From the beginning, you had founders of this country, of the Caucasian race, who in their sheer ingenuity framed a government with laws, a system of checks and balances, so that these laws could be carried out and the republic could be a well-balanced democracy with the system of checks and balances, where there's no one above the law. Then you had a group of men, Negroes, who were brought over here and who literally built the country, developed the country, took the blueprints from their Caucasian male counterparts and actually built the country, the White House, removed trees, tilled the soil, and carried on all of this that has made America the great country that it is today. So there it is. You have one racial group that, in their sheer ingenuity, framed the government on paper. And they did a good job of it. On the other hand, you had another group of men, another race of men, who built it. So we're here together in this day and time. If it could have been done without the Negro male, so be it. But obviously it couldn't. So we're here now. And as I said, if America is a trellis, then Negroes in America is the ivy. There's intertwined and interwoven densely, heavily upon it, to the point where you can't remove the ivy unless you remove the trellis. That's how deep it is. So however it ends up, or whatever is manifested through these acts of hate, through these acts of terrorism, know this, that as the Negro goes, so goes America. If the Negroes are to be killed off, then America is going to be killed off. If the Negro in America is going to be wiped off the face of the continent, then the face of the continent of America will cease to exist as we know it. But we know in our heart of hearts, regardless of what we see, what we hear, we know and believe that it's not going to be by the gun, but it's going to be by God that determines the fate of America and its citizens. The wise man knows this, and it's not just Negroes. The wise man knows, as I said, that it's not going to be by the gun. It's going to be by God that determines which races, who amongst us will be standing at the end of all of this hate, at the end of all of this domestic terrorism that is rearing its ugly head in America. As we go, so goes America. Because we're here. We've assimilated into every facet of American life. So if, as I said, if we are to be taken out, then America's going to be taken out. Know this. Domestic terrorism is a serious and grave threat, with cowardly acts being committed. Cowardly, going into churches, grocery stores. I'm not a person whose heart is filled with hate, even when hate is being afflicted upon me. But if I was a person who had hate in my heart and had a desire to kill other races or people of another race, I'm not going to go into a grocery store and just look for the innocents amongst Caucasians who've never espoused hate, who don't share views of hate. I'm going to go to where the haters are. I'm gonna either Google, MapQuest. I'm gonna do some kind of research to find out where these groups and where these people are located, and that's where I'm going to have trial by combat, or to do anything I can to eliminate the hate that's been a threat to me. Not innocent, nothing innocent. That's where I'm going. But as I said, just the opposite is happening with the domestic terrorists in America. They're going after the old, the feeble. You're only hurting your own cause because you're actually leaving the shooters who are going to be infuriated later on. You're leaving them alive still. If you feel like there's a great replacement, and if you feel like it's really a serious threat towards you, then, as I said, go where the threat is actually at. It's not with the elderly, because more often than not, they're not reproducing anymore. They've had their children. Now they're dealing with grandchildren who they're sitting in their rocking chair, rocking them on their knee, or playing patty cake or something like that with them. They're not reproducing anymore. So it's very cowardly to go there. So with the same zest and zeal, go after the domestic terrorists whenever or wherever they might rear their ugly head. It remains to be seen. It remains to be seen. Since the shooting in Buffalo, there's been a bill put forth in Washington, D.C., with no Republican participation. No Republican participation. The school shooting in Uvalde, here just a couple of days ago. We still have the Republicans dragging their feet on semi-automatic weaponry. The type of weapons that should be only on the battlefield, only in combat with our American soldiers. Do I need an AK-47 or do I want an AK-47? If I need it, what for? Where is the enemy? If I want it, what for? What do I want an AK-47 for in America when we're supposed to have the strongest military in the world? And with that being the case, if you have the strongest military in the world, which we do, then there's no need for the AK-47 because they're going to take care of everything that we need. That's what they're sworn to do, to defend the country. So therefore, all you need is rifles for hunting, certain type of weaponry to defend your home from intruders, from people who would come in and do you harm, whether at home or out in public. Handguns, simple weapons is enough to deter any criminal who may be trying to do you harm. So with the AK-47, what is it needed for? What is the point? You're not going to be able to shoot your way out of the problem. You're not going to be able to shoot your way out of the problem. So here we have it. Here we have it. Domestic terrorism, alive and well. Terrorism from outside forces, from foreign forces, we managed to keep it at bay. Let's see if we can do the same thing with domestic terrorism. Let's see if we can do the same thing with domestic terrorism. We want to go after it with the same equal determination as we do the foreign terrorists. Because as I said, it's alive and well. There's no excuses to make. It's a serious threat. And we've never ceased to go after these serious threats when they've affected American citizens. So here we are. Here we are today. If the president is stirring it up, he's not above the law. No one's above the law in America. What is the solution? What is the problem with going after the domestic terrorists that exist, that are thriving, that are alive and well inside American society? Let's take a long look. Let's take a deep dive. Let's stay alert. And as I said,